Hi, friend. Welcome to the end of chapter 16. We've arrived to day 4, and have we not seen the glory of the Lord in a new way? I was praying to the Lord this morning and just had to tell him how I feel like the eyes of my heart have been enlightened to see him anew as I walk this journey with the Israelites. And it's true once again this week. So here we are. Let me go ahead. This is a short passage. I'm going to read it and then we'll briefly unpack it. All right. So starting at verse 31. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations." As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate the manna 40 years till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is the 10th part of an ephah. All right. Well, obviously, today's passage is all about manna, this bread that God has given to the Israelites. We first saw it at the beginning of the chapter, or the middle of the chapter, in verse 15. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." And so we've been pondering this for a few days now, this bread that the Lord has given them to eat. My Bible dictionary defines manna in this way: a supernatural food that God gave the Israelites in the wilderness after the Exodus. Perhaps something like a grain or a seed. Well, obviously, that's what Moses tells us. We think he's the author of the book of Exodus, and he goes on to say it was like coriander seed. So a very fragrant seed. It was white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. So I've just made a long list of what I learned about manna and some of the things that the author tells us about manna and its importance here. So it was like wafers made with honey. And a wafer, it's almost a cracker-like substance of unleavened bread. So it's a thin wafer of unleavened bread, which would have been typically made with a grain. So in a way, this is similar to a grain, but it tastes like it is made with honey. And another cross-reference is Numbers 11, 7 through 8. We learn a little bit more about manna here. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its appearance like that of bdellium. The people went about and gathered it and ground it in hand mills, or beat it in mortars and boiled it in pots and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was like the taste of cakes baked with oil. Now, part of me wonders, how are they doing all of this in the wilderness? Like, I have it so easy with the kitchen downstairs, you know what I'm saying? But I just love that last part, the taste of cakes baked with oil. So we have the sense of it tastes like honey. It tastes like oil. The Lord didn't give them just any old thing to eat. He gave them something tasty to eat. Did you glean that? This is tasty. It's like grain. So number one, it's tasty. It's also like grain, but the people did not have to cultivate it. They did not have to work to grow this grain. You know what I'm saying? The Lord gave it to them. How miraculous is this that they don't have to work to cultivate it? They merely get to gather up the fruit that God gives to them to eat. Oh, friends, even just speaking that out loud, I get goosebumps. Let's not overlook, like many of us, if we've grown up in the church, we're familiar with manna. We've heard of manna, this bread from heaven, the bread of life for the people of Israel that points forward to Jesus Christ being our bread of life. But let's not look past the miracle here. And clearly, God is saying, look, this is a miracle. I want you to remember it. So he goes on to command Moses that an omer be kept throughout the generations. Why? That they may see, that these generations to come may see the bread with which God fed the Israelites when he brought them out of Egypt. So in a sense, friends, here's one more miracle, right? This omer of manna is going to be kept throughout the generations. It's not going to spoil. It's not going to stink. Here's yet another miracle which God performs. And why does he want this omer kept? That they might know, that generations to come will know him, will see, will remember God's miraculous provision to his people in the wilderness after he rescued them out of the hands of Egypt. Like, here is one more sign for them to remember and know God's power, know his glory, know his provision to them, know his mercy and grace and compassion to them. Like, let us put ourselves in the midst of the wilderness. There's not food anywhere. It's hard for us to do that. As I mentioned earlier in the week, I've got food down in my pantry. I can just open up my refrigerator, and I have something to eat. They've got nothing, and there's no fields, there's nothing. There's only wilderness after wilderness after wilderness, desert after desert after desert before them. Here is God's gracious and merciful and faithful provision to his people. It's beautiful. So Aaron does it. He places this omer of manna before the Lord. And then we have this passage, this chapter ends with a little side note that would have been added later on, right? The people of Israel ate the manna 40 years till they came to a habitable land, until they came to the promised land of Canaan. Friends, they ate it for 40 years. 40 years, God provided this tasty bread from heaven that they do not have to cultivate. They don't have to work to get it. Just day by day, day after day, God provides this fruit for them to eat such that they will be satisfied. What a beautiful way for them to learn to trust him. Don't we see his faithfulness, his grace, his mercy, his generosity to them? He makes it so easy to really to make it through the wilderness journey. He is present with them and he is providing for them. I just put, in my application, it's like, wow, the Lord is the good shepherd, such that we shall not be in want. Look at how he provides for his people. They shall not want in the midst of their wilderness journey. And friends, today, aren't we all, so to speak, on a wilderness journey as we are on this heaven-bound journey? And when it comes to circumstances, do you remember at the beginning of Exodus, we talked about how it's almost like Moses dangles this question out there before his people, because this is written for the people of Israel. And he dangles out this question. Look, when circumstances don't make sense, can we trust the Lord? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. Just by this miracle of manna alone, we can see that yes. I mean, it does not make sense that God's people are in the middle of a wilderness, right? It doesn't make sense that they ended up in Egypt for hundreds of years and were slaves for decades, and now they're refugees in the midst of the wilderness. That doesn't make sense. But can we trust God to provide when circumstances don't make sense? Oh, friends, yes, yes, yes.